Hello YouTube, and welcome to another weekly Monday randomizer. Oh, do I need to feed the cat? I guess I might as well. Alright. Now with that taken care of, let's go ahead and randomize loadout, see what we're doing today. Put away whatever guns these were, I don't care. We're going to, oh god. Well, this is going to be, interesting. These are not weapons that I'm particularly used to using, but at least I believe that the first sortie objective today is going to be a spy mission, so at least we've got Limbo here. I've been considering actually doing these videos on maybe the higher tiers of the sorties, maybe the top tiers, just because it seems like the level 50 missions are not exactly that crazy, so we'll have to see if that ends up being a thing that we're going to want to do. But this is my Limbo. Yes, cry now, I play Limbo with overextended. In fact, I've been considering swapping out this Exilus mod for the range Exilus mod here, the cutting drift. I just really do feel like Limbo needs pain threshold on those, so take it or leave it, take it or leave it. Obviously, Limbo has some very interesting design choices that you can make with the Warframe, since defensively Limbo is different from most of the other Warframes out there, in that a lot of what Limbo does involves simply shifting into the rift plane and not being in a place where he can take a single point of damage. So actually, before I even talk about this build here, I want to talk about the newest little bit of tech that you can put onto a Limbo, which I'm going to quickly apply here if I can. It's Amalgam Barrel Diffusion. And what's interesting about the Amalgam mod here on Limbo, and why I'm specifically hopping onto the pistol to equip it, is that the dodge speed causes him to roll faster, which causes him to shift it take the steps sideways out of reality and into the rift somewhat faster, which is pretty cool. And that means that Limbo can essentially dodge incoming projectiles by hopping into the rift. Now we're going to augment that effect with natural talent, which is going to cause his Cataclysm to come up faster and shove himself into the rift faster that way. Alternatively, I think Cataclysmic Continuum has been updated to be working a little bit better, to have more of an impact on the UI, so you can better predict how long your next Cataclysm is going to last. It doesn't tick down to 0 and then still have half of the size of it remaining, weird stuff like that. So Cataclysmic Continuum is what I would slot in there if you feel like natural talent is really useful in Limbo. But I actually find that this mod has a ton of value on this Warframe compared to a lot of the other ones. Getting the Cataclysms, long cast animation, completed faster, getting stasis to be a faster casting animation, so enemies spend a lot less time unfrozen. That's pretty cool. And like I said, that's the primary design that we're going for here. So we're going for placing a Cataclysm, locking the enemies in stasis in a wide area of effect, and then using Rift Surge when appropriate to keep enemies in the Rift. Sometimes that's going to be the right thing, sometimes it's not. I think we're going to be using a lot more Rift Surge in solo play than with a squad, because a big issue that squad mates face when playing with a Limbo is generated by Limbos using Rift Surge improperly. So I guess I'm going to talk about that issue right here as well. If you're going to play a big Cataclysm Limbo, if you're not going to go with a narrow-minded build that puts... I don't even know why this has adaptation. Let me quick mess with that. But regardless what your defensive tools are, I guess we'll go Vitality there since it doesn't have the capacity for redirection. Regardless of what you're doing, if you're going to have a Cataclysm that's going to be covering a large area effect, you can be providing a lot of defensive utility for your team by doing so. But by the same token, the big frustration point with Limbo comes when there are enemies that are sitting around that you cannot damage. And the best way to make that happen and to frustrate your teammates is to Rift Surge and banish a bunch of enemies that are outside of a Cataclysm so that a teammate that's running around outside of the Cataclysm suddenly is dealing with a bunch of enemies that are inside the Rift anyway, and they can't deal with them because they can't put themselves into the Rift without your help. So that teammate then has to stop shooting, go walk over to wherever the Cataclysm is, hop into the boundary of the Cataclysm, turn back, and start pulling out a gun and shooting at those enemies. It's very frustrating, and that's the main sticking point that makes people get frustrated with Limbo. So the best tool when you're in a squad to make that less frustrating is to simply not surge enemies, unless you're going to be having some specific reason to do so. For instance, it's a good tool to be using when your squad mates are down and you're trying to revive. It'll just keep all the enemies in stasis regardless of the circumstances. It's also a good tool if you're in a scenario where your squad is moving from location to location. I think a great example being excavation, right? Where you've put up a Cataclysm on an excavator, the excavator finishes its process. It's probably okay to surge the enemies then, because your squad is leaving, going to a new location of the map anyway. But point being, this is where this Rift Surge causing banishes on enemies is the primary sticking point with Limbo, and it's the primary thing you have to do if you're going to be playing an overextended large Cataclysm Limbo is don't surge them if there's allies sitting nearby. Got it? That's my public service announcement. Limbo is perfectly fine to play with a large Cataclysm if you just know when to surge enemies and when not to. And if you've got allies that you're going to frustrate with it, don't do it. Public service announcement out. So how do we play this? How do we play big Cataclysm Limbo? Well, first of all, tank mods. Prime Flow, Quick Thinking, Redirection, Pain Threshold, and bonus knockdown recovery of Constitution. There you go. Tons and tons of tank mods. Because all that we really need to make this build do what it needs to do is we need to put up a big Cataclysm, let it sit there, and let it keep enemies in stasis. So, lots of range, or extended, lots of duration, constitution, continuity, and, like I said, the rest of the build is streamlined for more efficiency, and natural talent, so that we can get the abilities out. That's all it takes to make a good Limbo that can hold enemies in stasis for a long time. Nothing in here is particularly crazy, and that's why I was kind of ignoring it for a while. Some people think that you should play this with narrow-minded. Well, your Cataclysm is going to last for approximately 2 years then. And if you add Cataclysm Continuum, it gets even crazier. Although, with a very small Cataclysm, you're not going to be killing a lot of enemies in it. So it's not that good of an augment there. Why the hell did I put adaptation on so many builds? I think I just put adaptation on everything when it first came out, and some of these it's not a good choice, but what can you do, you know? This, of course, being some weird high power strength Rift Torrent idea. I'm not sure what I'm doing there, but point being, nothing really crazy with Limbo there. Limbo's going to be an interesting one for this mission, because, again, spy mission, so he can phase through barriers and things. I guess I already partially showed off the twin Kohmak, but I mean, I hate this weapon. No offense to Kayla Dethame. I just don't particularly like the Kohmaks in general. The big issue is that they waste ammunition at the same rate that the Comb wastes ammunition, but the Comb comes with 1,000 or something ammo in the tank. The twin Kohmak does not have very long you can shoot it before it runs out of ammo, regardless of how you build the gun. And so I don't really feel like it's a viable weapon to be taken to any kind of non-linear mission type. Obviously, spy is linear. We know how long the mission lasts and how many enemies we have to kill. It's got to be kind of reasonable. Also, I just got to point out this stupid deep alert at the very front there. That's not good with the deep freeze. I have not turned Cobra and Crane into anything either. Cobra and Crane is highly comparable to, and I'm going to forget the name of the weapon, Sigma and Octantis, right? So here's the weapon comparison. They're both a shield, a high blocking shield and sword weapon that's got they're both that kind of high blocking shield and sword weapon that's got the throwing mechanic. Cobra and Crane's got 100 base damage, so Sigma and Octantis has 50. Cobra and Crane has no critical stats. Sigma and Octantis has critical stats that instantly make up for it, having such a lowered base damage. So I don't really know that either of those weapons is good, though. I particularly dislike the fact that this weapon is pure impact. I dislike the lower base attack speed, although you can still get that to a reasonable attack speed with Fury. And I dislike the fact that it's all status, no crit on this, when you've got a weapon that's all impact damage, you know? I feel like this weapon, while it's got the 90 base damage to work with, just doesn't have any way to improve upon the fact that it's got 90 base damage. There's nothing you can do with that. The only place it can go is stacking as many elemental mods as humanly possible and setting up with condition overload and hoping for the best. That's just not my cup of tea in this scenario. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't feel like this weapon has any potential. Whereas a Sigma Noctantis, despite having half of the base damage, despite having straight up half of the base damage, has crit available, deals primarily slash damage, so you can set up with slash procs and bonus slash alongside the condition overload. And you can get a lot. You can even get a lot more attack speed out of it. It's just a better weapon. It's just a better weapon, even though it deals less damage. It's still just a better weapon. Actually, it's not even 50 damage. It's 60. I'm running that math again in my head, and it's actually a bit larger than I even thought it was. It's 60 damage instead of 100. So there you go. But we're gonna show off Cobra Crane anyway, because for being not a fantastic weapon, ultimately it's usable. Out of these three weapons, the weapon I think you can rely on is our friend the Snipetron Vandal, which you can obtain by doing what's this bucket? Invasion missions. I think the parts come off of invasion mission rewards when you're supporting a faction 3 times. So you'd have to do 12 invasion missions, each specifically giving you one of the 4 parts of the Snipetron Vandal. So what does this gun do? Well, the Snipetron Vandal is a sniper rifle with reasonable critical stats, not crazy stats chance, high puncture damage, and I find good zoom settings. I do like the Snipetron zoom settings. What I dislike about it is the recoil. The Snipetron Vandal actually has very high recoil on every shot, which I find to be a bit annoying to deal with, and since I don't have any kind of Riven mod here, I haven't bothered to necessarily put it beyond a base usability build. But we got ourselves a Serration Split Chamber, and then 3 crit mods, critical chance, damage, and then our dual stats for corrosive. It should function well enough to put us through the mission. I certainly have taken this out onto high tier Plains of Eidolon missions, and even without the last mod slot being used, it's still perfectly fine for killing enemies. Obviously, if you're going to get your last mod slot here, there's options. Argon Scope comes to mind. Just for the fun of it, I'm going to put the Concentration on and use up the extra capacity there. But yeah, Argon Scope comes to mind. Hunter Munitions comes to mind. What I found to be more effective than either of those on things like sniper rifles is primed cryo rounds. A big issue being that a lot of those proc mods, like Argon Scope and like Hunter Munitions, require you to be shooting multiple enemies, shooting multiple rounds into any given enemy to get their procs, to get the best use case scenario, right? Hunter Munitions is really good on automatic weapons, where you're going to be applying 10 shots to a single enemy, of which 3 of them are going to be applying slash, you know? On a sniper rifle, yeah, sure, any enemy on which that procs is dead, but Argon Scope's probably a little bit better because you can just get 1 headshot and then know that your second shot is going to kill them. 70% of the time that mod will do nothing, you know, even in a best use case scenario. So we're gonna go with, obviously, again, Split Chamber for multi-shot makes it not quite that bad of a deal, but still. I would say that you're going for better raw damage with Prime Cryo rounds or with Vigilante armaments. It's probably the better direction to go on a sniper rifle, more raw damage. And of course, Vigilante armaments also is a great option because you're going to end up with more multi-shot. And on a sniper rifle, more multi-shot means more combo counter, faster. So I would say that that's probably the best. Vigilante armaments is probably even better than Prime Cryo rounds to be slotted into the last place here. And if I was to slap in 2 more Forma on this, that would me an extra 8 capacity to slap that in, have 11 sitting around instead of 3. And there you go. That'd be a reasonable build. So that's how I would set that up. Schrodinger's cat. I have been trying to figure out how to I've been trying to figure out which of these mods to drop in to get a Link shields onto the build, since I do want to. I've been noticing that my what's their buckets? MOAs are significantly tankier than my Kavats are, specifically because of them running not only Link armor, Link health, and the medikit, but also Link shields. And the reason why I have that extra slot on MOAs is because, in addition to the 2 base precepts and whatnot, you know, the vacuum, the animal instinct, 1 utility mod. I'm trying to remember what it is on the Sentinels, but the big issue is that the Kavats take 2 mods to be able to heal effectively, whereas on the MOAs it's only 1. It's the Medi Ray on them, which, while less effective than Maul Hunt's recovery at healing, is 1 less mod slot. And I particularly like the Sharpened Claws as a utility tool on the Kavats. For comparison here, what is it? Oh yeah, it's Guardian is the other thing I'm running on these. It's Guardian in addition to Medi Ray, so they can apply both health and shields, you know, and that's just fine on their part. I don't feel like Guardian is as strong as the as the Sharpened Claws precept either. You know, it's one of those cases where Kavats can deal a ton of damage to high level enemies. If you really want to go all out, you can even drop this medikit and you can swap in something like Bite and make them go deal just an absurd amount of damage to high level enemies, between ignoring armor entirely and having this crazy amount of attack damage, right? That's going to be over 1,000 per hit. That's nothing to sniff at. But that's a lot of mod slots being invested into damage when you never bring a companion for damage, right? You always bring a companion for utility effects. Effects like Fetch, so you can get extra mod capacity, and Charm, which is why people even bring Smite Kavats for bonus XP and bonus loot drops, and of course Loot Raider and things like that, and healing. So there you go. That's why I'm getting a little frustrated trying to set that up. I'm about at the point where I'm just going to remove all the damage mods from my Kavat, polarize it again, add extra defensive tools, you know. As long as they're alive and they're not dying and I can have my enemy radar and my vacuum, I'm happy. So let's go ahead and run this. Obviously with Limbo, you want to run Zinuric just for bonus energy regeneration. He just wants to spam on abilities. Occasionally I could see running Vazarin as well, so you can revive some overzealous squad mates. Limbo's great for rezzing though, even without Vazarin, so that's not a worrisome setup in there at all. I'm just going to straight up not interact with the mission as best I can. This is a benefit to playing Limbo in spy missions, is you can just kind of not play the mission until it comes to the point where you can do the objective. So a big thing I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna put these enemies away. This is where Rift Surge comes in handy. So we can just drop the Cataclysm right there, leave all those enemies in the Rift plane. Here we go. And Limbo can, in this particular vault, ignore the alternate routes just by phasing through all of these lasers and saying, hey, I don't give a darn, I am walking straight to the objective. As you can see there as well, that's part of the amalgam build that we got going here. You see how fast he rolls there and goes back and forth into the rift? That's the benefit of the amalgam barrel diffusion. Obviously, your rolls don't go as far in that scenario, but who even cares? The point is that we're trying to shift back and forth into the rift as fast as possible. I suppose I should go ahead and show off the weapons. Here's Cobra Crane. That deals reasonable finisher damage. There you go. There's the damage from the twin Kohmaks. As you can see, it's not terrible damage. It's just that they are an ammo hog. And I've got like 2 more clips of that left. Or 2 more clips, I guess 3, 1 loaded in. So there's that. And like I said, the Snipetron has some recoil. It's not as bad as I remember it being, actually. I think it's really just bad if you dial the zoom into the 6 times. Yeah, that's pretty hard to set up follow-up shots. There we go. Also, just doesn't have a very satisfying firing noise, at least in my opinion. Certainly is able to get kills though. Nothing terrible. As you can see there, that hefty crit certainly is able to deal a lot of damage. Yeah, 57k on a headshot, orange crit there. The big issue is this, that these enemies have some kind of elemental resistance, so it's not a great demonstration of any of these guns. I think it's electrical elemental resistance, which is annoying because I've set up multiple of these weapons with corrosive damage, and they're reducing corrosive damage. Anyways, let's go ahead and drop that. Put all those enemies into the rift where we don't care about them. Because we don't have any invisibility mechanics here, I am worried about these sentinels just seeing us randomly. Also, there's been something odd with the zip lines in the current patch. I'm not sure if it's just happening to me, if it's happening to everyone, but I've been having my interact key not use zip lines properly. And you have to be holding down a movement key at the same time to make them do anything. Kind of weird. Don't know why it's doing that, but it seems to be working today, so maybe they patched it in a hotfix, I just wasn't paying attention. Well, I am Limbo, so I shall just phase through this door. Yep, so I said, with no invisibility, those suckers just see you for no reason. And a big issue with high tier, those high tier little seeker, the sensor regulators, whatever they're called, as well as that they're kind of just status immune and very tanky. They have a massive pile of armor, and ultimately, if your first shot doesn't kill them, you trip the alarms. Which is why weapons like the Snipetron and other snipers and bows are but the only thing that you're gonna see being a reasonable choice for that sort of mission if you're not gonna be able to take those if you're not gonna be able to go invisible past those suckers. And again, a big part of why I feel like spy missions are finally starting to be a bit outdated in terms of the Warframe meta is that if I was actually worried about this sort of thing and making sure I did this properly, there we go. All those enemies are now in the rift. A big part of getting past this kind of stuff, and I'm going to use in this third vault here because there's some nastiness. Oh wow, it's a whole new swarm of enemies. Like I said, a big tool that is available now in Warframe that hasn't really been available in the past. At least not to such a good extent. Is this. The operator's ability to just be invisible and dash past all this crud. Not to deal with it. So we'll go ahead and swap into the rift so I don't trip any of these lasers since I don't touch them. Invisible behind that man, phase through all the lasers. You know, Limbo is actually a really good Warframe from doing this stuff. And because I have stasis going, let's put that man away so I don't have to deal with him. And there we go. No weapons needed. Alright, now we'll... Oh, I got pure crits off the cat too. Well, that's entertaining. Fortunately, the Cobra Crane doesn't have a very high critical multiplier. And I don't know why I can't hit that one while I'm in the rift. But yeah, as you can see here, they take a few shots to bring down even with a reasonable weapon, and this is not among my best sniper rifles, so you know. A little bit annoying trying to just shoot them without popping the alarms. A lot better just to invis past them with the operator, or invis past them with, say, a shade, or with a Warframe with invisibility skills, you know. Yeah, that's Limbo for you. Doesn't need to interact with the mission if he doesn't want to. Despite having some of the weirdest, craziest weapons I've rolled yet, I think we're good to go. So that's the weekly randomizer. Hope you all enjoyed that showcase of Limbo and some of these other guns. Again, I feel like that's a bit of a... I'm getting a little bit down on the Snipetron there, but because it was not dealing very much damage, But the big thing about the Snipetron in that scenario is that the enemies had some kind of damage resistance. I'm going to quick look up what it was as soon as we get back to the ship. Because I think that was definitely dealing much less damage than I'm used to seeing it. It's not showing what it was. Physical enhancement of some kind. Well, they would have had resistance to all the base puncture damage then, so that makes sense. Alright, that's the weekly randomizer. Herb to derp out.